Hey everybody, welcome back to Tommy's Tesla Tech and Travel. This is another comic book edition. Thank you all for watching my last one where I started going through the short boxes of my comic book collection, and I know it tickled a few of you that I kept them in a baby wipes box from Costco. Trust me, I have plenty of actual short boxes. That's just my transition box. That's where I put stuff before I decide which box is going in and what collection it's going to be associated with. I enjoy doing it, and like I said, we're not going to get out of the house a whole lot right now between everything going on in my work, everything going on in our lives. We're just really busy. So I decided to do a second one. My video after this will most likely be my being at Presidio Comics for the grand opening with a bunch of other local creators and everything. But I decided to do one more box of short box stuff. This isn't any short box. It's a CGC box. Oh. So we're going to go through these one at a time. And I'll skip some that maybe won't be appealing to everyone. But this is the first CGC box in my collection. I have 3. So let's get started. And what's really cool about this one, this actually has a particular run of books that was a goal of mine to collect all in entirety. Oh, and decided to bust out the old Tucson Roadrunners jersey. It's our local amateur semi-pro hockey team here in Tucson. They're probably gonna be moving here pretty soon, but you know, until then, I gotta rep my hometown team. So first book out of the box, let's see. Oh, we're actually jumping right into that collection. A lot of you are familiar with the big premiere issues from Marvel from 1968. Well, there's a whole series of that run. Some of them weren't actually labeled as big premiere, but I still consider them part of that run, and I collected all those ones. So let's dive right in. First one is Captain Savage and his Leatherneck Riders. This was the first one that was released in January of 1968. And this is the first one that said, you know, kind of a big premiere. Oops, forgive the glare. Big premiere. So this was actually the last one that I collected to complete that run. Because one of the rules I made, I tried to find them all out in the wild for a decent price, and I didn't care if they were low grade or high grade. This collection actually all started, well, we're going to come to that because that's actually the next book. And that's Captain America number 100. This is actually the second copy that I purchased. The first one I did buy that one online. I bent my rules a little bit because it was such a good deal, and as a graduation present to myself for finishing my master's degree. But then I bought this one later on at a local comic book shop, and it actually ended up being a higher grade, and to me a little bit better presenting copy. So I used the other one for trade later on. And this one came out in April of 1968. I think these are all in order, so that's kind of what I'm stressing about the months and years. This one I got in trade. It's an old CGC label, so I want to get it updated at some point, but it's the Incredible Hulk number 102. So some of the, oh, glare again. Some people might talk about how, you know, this was like basically Incredible Hulk number 1 and the actual like Hulk that you and I both know. And this one's a higher grade at 7.0 from the rest of them. And I got this from our friends over at Presidio in a trade. The next one's probably one of the more popular ones from this run. This is one that I got during COVID. In fact, what really started this collection was I had nothing going on during COVID. So I started collecting books, like talking to local shops, local collectors, wheeling and dealing online. Yes, I know, again, breaking the rule of finding it out in the wild. But to me, it was still kind of in the wild. It was the equivalent of the wild during those times. So like talking to other like collectors I knew online and coming up with deals. And this one is Iron Man number 1. The big premiere issue from May of 1968. Granted, it's a 3.0, but I got it for a really good deal, especially before like the prices started climbing because of COVID and everybody started collecting from home. The next one, I think at the time, kind of overpay for it, but I thought it presented really well, so I was kind of okay with that. Doctor Strange, Master of the Mystic Arts. It's Doctor Strange number 169, which kind of like started off him in his own title at that point. And this, again, was one of the big premiere issues without actually saying big premiere. And this is from June of 1968. So me personally, I know people aren't going to agree with me, but I consider them all part of that same big premiere run. These were some major titles at the time. And this next one is probably my highest grade of that run. And, you know, it's everybody's eye-patched hero. Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. number 1. And this one comes also in June of 1968. Again, no big premiere in there, but it was part of that big release year from 1968. And I thought this was a really good cover, and I got it for a really good deal at 8.5 because I actually had a lower grade one. I ended up trading to a local comic book shop here in Tucson for some stuff. Next, Captain Marvel, but not the one that you're used to. This is the OG Captain Marvel from Marvel Comics. This one came out in May of 1968. Oh, so these are out of order. I got to fix that. And this is the one that's a big premiere issue. It's definitely a low grade, but I got it for such a good price I couldn't argue. because it definitely has a lot of that Marvel chipping spine wear on it. But for overall, for as old as it was and the condition, the blues really do kind of pop on it still. Next up, I actually bought this on a trip to Washington. I went to I Like Comics there in Vancouver, Washington, while I was visiting my dad, who lives in Northern Oregon. And again, couldn't argue with the deal, I thought. And that'd be Submariner #1. Really quality copy. It's a 4.0. I think they graded it pretty fairly, but I thought it was kind of a 4.0, 4.5. But again, he gave me a good price on this one because he had a higher grade copy that he was trying to talk me into, or, well, pitched to me anyway. I was like, you know what? But it was raw. I liked this one because it was graded and I was getting ready to fly back. I was going to be more protected, and I didn't have to grade it myself. So, hey, always a good day. This was actually one of the first, like, more expensive books I, like, bought at a show. I was like, I'm a grown-up now. I can kind of buy this. And that's Silver Surfer #1. And that's from August of 1968. Presented extremely well. Even though it's a 2.5 and it says cream to off-white pages, it presents so well. Like, this is better than some 4.0s and 5.0s I saw. Again, I think I kind of overpaid for it, and it does have a little bit of a fold right here in the front. But it was one of those, you never know where you're going to see it in that good of quality again, so when you see it, you buy it. And I sure did. And that was one of the first times I ever exercised the practice of ask for forgiveness instead of permission on that book. Now, the next part of this box is going to be kind of sporadic. There's no real organization or like theme to it. Just some of my CGC books that are in this box. But this next one does mean a whole lot to me. It's one of the 2 books that got me back into reading comics. And if you've seen our shows in the past, that was Invincible by Robert Kirkman and Chew by John Layman and Rob Guillory. And this is actually Chew #1, first printing in a 7.5, signed by both creators with the verified signatures on it. So I'm lucky enough where I run to John all the time. He's an Arizona local, and like, you know, we're on a friendly basis. So it's cool. I literally have everything Chew that's been printed, and it's all signed by him. So that was a big book for me. That one's more of a, probably never gonna leave my collection because that's for me, not necessarily like building the equity behind it. Although it is a pretty valuable book. And if you recall, we talked earlier about the wall I had up in a previous video where I was like, oh, I kind of changed the theme to it. And one of my favorite characters of all times is Blade. I honestly never thought I was ever going to own a Tomb of Dracula #10 just because they went crazy price during COVID times. Not only did I get one, I was ended up getting one that I was lucky enough to get that was already signed by Marv Wolfman and Roy Thomas, and both witness signatures through CBCS. And it was like a 3.0, and I got it for really a fair price. I got it for cheaper than any other books, like, well, take that back. Cheaper than like the big name books. I think I paid the same price for that I did for that Invincible #1. The market's correcting itself, what can I say? So I thought this was gonna be the closest thing I ever had to the first appearance of Blade. And that's Tomb of Dracula #13, the third appearance of Blade, and his origin story, where we find out where he came from and how he came to be. Only thing bad about this one is it presents so well is there is a pin on the cover in writing, which kind of takes away from the aesthetics of it, but still a fantastic book at a 4.0. And I don't usually talk about prices per se on this, but I think I paid like $60 for it when I got it. This next couple I saw, next 3 that I saw, do have a kind of a theme. They're all X-Men related, and I've sent all these ones in myself to get graded at some point. And the first one, Uncanny X-Men #266. Arguably the first appearance of Gambit. First appearance in really continuity. He did make an appearance in an X-Men annual before that, but this is the one everybody knows, and it's got that fantastic cover on it. So I mean, you can't really go wrong. I'll take this any day of the week. And it's a 7.5. It was a raw copy, and if you followed any of our stuff before, I don't press my books, so chances are probably could have got a higher grade. The next one was a random pickup at a like used bookstore. It didn't get as high of a grade I was hoping for, but I also didn't realize it was a Mark Jewelers variant, so that was kind of cool. And that's New Mutants #87, first appearance of Cable. And it says it right there on the thing, Mark Jewelers variant. So very cool. Next one is not a particularly valuable book, but I like it a lot. It's my X Factor #6, first appearance of Apocalypse. I actually have a raw version of this as well that's signed by Bob McLeod. But he's my favorite villain in the entire X-Men universe. So I got this one. I knew it was kind of damaged in the corners. I actually thought it was going to be like a 5.5 to a 6. So I was like, you know, I'm going to send it and get it graded. What the heck? Because I'd rather have it protected than just bouncing around the bag and board. So like I said, there's some random books in here. This next one might not really ring a bell with a lot of people. They probably have heard of it, but it doesn't mean a whole lot. But mine might be the most unique one you've ever seen. And that's Haunt #1. In the gold foil edition, and what makes this one really unique, it's signed by everyone that worked in the book. And I got all these in person myself, which is Greg Capullo, Richard Starkings, Robert Kirkman, Ryan Otley, and Todd McFarlane. So at a 9.8 with this book, I think this is one of the more valuable books I own, but it's one of those books that has to go to the right collector under the right circumstances. Otherwise, it's a book that didn't really pan out too well in the long run. But you're never going to see this one with the signatures all verified ever again. Only thing I'm always kind of salty about that book, everybody signed in red and Robert Kirkman signed in black. But you know what? I wasn't there for the continuity of it. I was there for the experience of it and the memory. So these next three also serve a theme, just randomly. I'm a big Hellboy fan. He was one of those first characters I saw that wasn't Marvel, wasn't DC. It was something different. And I experienced it at my first Comic-Con back in 2008, where we walked around the show floor, and I met Mike Mignola the first time. So I became a fan. I started collecting the stuff. It's like the first one here is San Diego Comic-Con Comics #2, first appearance of Hellboy in North America. I mean, the cover doesn't really give it away, but it's inside there. It even says here, first appearance of Hellboy in American comics. So this was a big get for me. I probably started with the better Hellboy book out of the three, but why not? The next one is John Byrne's X-Men #21, his first full color appearance ever. So, and look how cool he looks. I freaking loved Hellboy, and Ron Perlman in the movies he is Hellboy. I actually really liked, I totally blanked his name, David Harbour, I think it is. I actually liked him as Hellboy. I just wasn't a huge fan of that particular movie. And to close out that trilogy, my Seed of Destruction #1, like his first real title. And in this one, if you can see, it's yellow label because I have it signed by Mike Mignola. I got it signed at my Comic-Con 2 years later after that in San Diego. I believe that was in 2010. All right, we're getting to the end of this box, so thank you for bearing with me if you watched this far. This next one was a pickup I did here at Fantasy Comics in Tucson just because I love Captain America, as you guys know. And it was Giant Size Invaders #1, and I thought it was really good, and they had it right on the mark. It was a raw copy, and they said they're pretty sure it was a 9.0. I sent in for grading, sure enough, 9.0. Next is one of those dreaded labels. It's a purple label. But again, it's Captain America, so I didn't get too angry. It's Tales of Suspense #59, I almost said 58, 59, which is actually the first solo Captain America story since the 1940s. So I wanted to have it, but the bad thing about this one is a purple label. The reason it has it, it says restoration includes tear seals on cover of interior and a staple replaced. So, but actually with the cover part, that's usually because they found tape in there. So I'm sure someone taped it at some point. But cover presents extremely well. It's a 5.0, and it's even got a slight A. So according to this, that's like good restoration and the bare minimum restoration. But according to CGC, restoration nonetheless. This next one, I actually really enjoy this character. I'm one of the few people that actually love these Marvel movies, and that was Ant-Man, because I love me some Paul Rudd, but I also love the idea and the character. Of course, Ant-Man has his history of drunkenness and abuse. Maybe he's not that great of a guy now that I'm thinking about it. I've always loved this cover, and this is the first appearance of Scott Lang as Ant-Man. And as a 5.0, I actually got this one for a really good price back when comics were at really high. The thing that I was shocked about, and I checked it with CGC, it's wrong. I thought it was definitely going to be trim label. I was like, how did this not get trimmed on it when I saw it? Because you can see, I don't know how well you can see, it's really up against there, but I checked, it's not considered a trimmed book, so cool. Next up is technically not my book. I bought this for my wife, who's not into comics at all. She's not part of the hobby and the culture, but she fell in love with a certain TV show, and as one of the shows, I told her, it's like, oh, did you know this was a comic book at one point? She didn't realize it. And that's iZombie. So one year for her, I surprised her with a copy of iZombie #1. It's a 9.4 high grade. And I said, even though I'm going to keep it with my books, this is her book, because this definitely represents her personality in a book she really likes, and it's from Vertigo. And it was just a clean copy. And I thought the show was really fun and appealed to an audience that wasn't normally comic book fans. These next ones are not necessarily heavy hitters, but I enjoyed them. They were some of my earliest pickups when I started taking the hobby seriously. Like for instance, a king size annual number 10, first appearance of Rogue. But again, lower grade copy, it's a 5.0, and it's got the original CGC case, or CBCS, because I had just started collecting, and they were the first place I ever went through for collecting. Same thing with these ones. In fact, I'm gonna take these out and we'll show them to you like simultaneously. Jack Kirby's the king. We all love him. And I love Etrigan the Demon. So I was like, you know what? Good price, 3.0. I'll pick it up. That and New Gods #1, which is definitely cream off white, but a high grade copy or higher grade from what I was collecting at the time at a 4.5 because it's faded, but it's a really well presenting cover. And like I said, I love me some Jack Kirby. So gotta have these books in my collection. And some people do ask, do I plan on like upgrading my copies at any point? Maybe if the right situation comes along, but it's not a priority. Just like this one, I always wanted a Star Wars #1, but if you look closely, it's not a Star Wars #1. It's a reprint. It's the one from 1982, which is actually issues #1 and 2, if I remember correctly. Yep, issues #1 and 2 collected in one book, but it's still a Star Wars #1. So, gotta have it. I love it. That's an iconic cover, especially if you love Star Wars and you're a comic collector. Like, you see that on shirts everywhere, and I have the actual book. I'm gonna save that one for last, because it's probably my favorite book that's in this one. But let's talk these first. On my shelf, we talked about in the last episode, or last video, we talked about Fantastic Four #52, which was the first appearance of T'Challa, Black Panther. And here is his second appearance. And what's cool about this one, a friend of mine actually talked about him in the show many times. My friend Eric over at Presidio Comics. I was having an absolutely terrible day, and I bought one of their like grab bags of random books, and he insisted like on this one. Turns out, he had put this in there for me because he knew I loved Black Panther, and I bought the first one from him. So this one I got from him gratis, and I went and got it graded. Came out to be a 3.0. I thought it was gonna be lower than that, but I just wanted to get it graded so I can display it with the other one. But it's also the first appearance of Ulysses Klaue, right? Yeah, sorry, the Claw, Ulysses Klaue. Sorry guys, it's like 1 a.m. and I do these videos because honestly they're a stress reliever. They're kind of like my therapy sometimes, and it's been extremely stressful the last couple weeks. This next book is the first appearance of Captain America in the Silver Age, but not really. It's actually a guy dressed as Captain America. It is Acrobat, and that's going to be Strange Tales #114. What's really cool, this is also the third appearance ever of Doctor Strange. And I was actually shocked this one got 3.5, other than the staple here is really like hanging on for dear life. But this presents extremely well, and it got creamed off-white pages. Before I sent this in for grading, I did flip through it. I didn't think it was that bad of pages, but what do I know? I don't do it professionally. I just like my comics. And again, I like Captain America. And this last book. It was actually the very first book I ever sent in to get graded. And it's a book that means a lot to me, and I have all the provenance to back up why it means a lot to me. It's my Fantastic Four #32. I bought as just a quick thing. I wanted to get Stan Lee to sign because he was at a convention I was at, and they were still selling tickets, so I bought them to meet the man himself. And this one was really cool. It was a book cover I wasn't familiar with, a book I wasn't necessarily familiar with, this particular storyline. And I also have all the provenance of the picture of him signing it, my ticket, and everything. And I got it right here, verified with CBCS. First book I ever sent in for grading. And this started off my like higher end collection, especially of autographs and books that really mean something to me. Because that was the time I got to meet the guy that created most of the characters I fell in love with my entire life. And that's the whole box, guys. And that's just the first box of my CGC books, or my slab book, I should say, because they're mostly CBCS and CGC. If you made it this far, thanks for watching, guys. I'm going to do couple more of these videos. I'm probably not going to do all my short boxes, just the ones I think you might be interested in. And the next one will be my appearance over there at Presidio Comics, along with all my friends and fellow creators. If you're in Tucson that day, it's June 29th, here at Tucson Mall, please stop by. You can actually pick up some books I've written, and check out all the art and creations of all the people I'm going to be here with, and also check out Presidio Comics itself. Great shop, great people. There's really nothing to lose. Well, thanks for making it this far. Thanks for taking a ride with us. Let's take another ride again soon. Bye-bye, everybody. Time to go to bed.